What's up, everyone? Welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com. My name is Jeff Spiegel. We are joined by Daniel Starkin, and we're going to get to, there's some MLB news. Believe it or not, today there was some MLB news. Some guys getting signed, some trades happening. But before we get into any of that, Daniel, January 18th, are you still holding out some hope for the Dodgers to do something this offseason?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to happen at some point, right? Right now, I mean, we'll get into it, but it feels like they still need a right-handed bat, probably one more reliever. So there's not a whole lot of work to do, just a couple different things. But yeah, we've been waiting a while now. Let's start making some stuff happen, Friedman.
Absolutely. I know. And it's like, I posted on Twitter, I said, I understand the frustration of Dodger fans, which it's not that I like agree necessarily with the frustration, but I get it. Like, I understand the feeling of, you see the Padres make trade after trade after trade after trade, and you're like, can we just do something? But patience is the key. Patience is the key. So here we go. Well, we appreciate you guys joining us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. We've got Life of Griffin saying he gave Mookie Betts the necklace that he wears. So that's a cool story if that's true. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
It's awesome.
But we appreciate you joining us. We got a fun show tonight. We're going to talk about Walker Buehler's contract a little bit. I know that's been a talking point as the arbitration deadline has passed. Cody Bellinger's shoulder surgery. There was an article we put up today that he hasn't even swung a bat since the regular season, so we'll talk about that, or since the end of the season. Some Dodger relief pitcher rumors. We've got a giveaway. Hopefully you stick around for that. We've got a Dodgers World Series champions dad hat. This thing is sweet, and we're going to be giving that away. I got a trivia question for you at the end, so we'll see if Daniel can get it first and foremost, and then we'll see if anybody else can grab it. And then we're also going to be giving away a Dodgers World Series champions DVD. Now, here's the thing. This one requires no skill. All you have to do is be subscribed to our YouTube channel, and you are eligible to win this. So make sure you're subscribed, make sure you got the notification bell on, and you are eligible to win the Dodgers World Series Blu-ray, not just DVD, but Blu-ray. And if you haven't seen it, it's amazing. Vince Scully narrated, so it's good stuff there. But before we dive into any of that, the trivia questions, the rumors, any of that, I want to get to the pressure point of Dodger fans right now. The thing that seems to be irking Dodger fans the most, which is third base. Third base. Daniel, in case you hadn't heard, Justin Turner is still a free agent. I don't know if you knew this, but the third baseman from last year is currently a free agent. DJ LeMahieu is off of the board, and I know all I've heard is lots of talk about what if Turner isn't back, right? DJ LeMahieu, again, is off the board. They did, by all accounts, make a real run. But you and I have been over the trade candidate, so I don't want to rehash that. But I do think there's another free agent name that we haven't mentioned that came from Ken Rosenthal this morning, which is Marcus Simeon, who is said to be a, quote, backup plan for the Dodgers. And my initial thought was, I don't like Simeon more than, or at least not by a big enough margin, than the guys the Dodgers already have on the roster, which made me realize you and I haven't really talked about what happens if they don't sign Justin Turner and don't make a trade. Who are the internal options here? So I apologize to Daniel ahead of time because I'm going to talk here for a couple minutes and go over the internal options, and then we'll break this down, and we'll circle back to Simeon at the end. So I'll start with this headline. I'm going to assume Gavin Lux, if he's a Major League Baseball player, is not in play at third base. If he's good enough to be in the majors, he's going to be their second base. So we'll start with Edwin Rios. Edwin Rios, I think, is the first name to have in a conversation about the Dodgers' third base options. And when it comes to Rios, the caveat to everything I'm about to say is he has 139 career plate appearances, okay? So we're talking 40 games, a 40-game sample size, even though it feels like he's been in our life for 2 years. So context is key. That said, the numbers, Daniel, as you know, are impressive. 972 OPS, 12 home runs, which is a 40-plus home run in a year pace, an above-average walk rate. Yes, strikes out a ton, 28% for his career, but that was down in 2020. He was striking out at a league average rate. And if that's sustainable, watch out, because the hard hit percentage, the barrel percentage, the exit velocity, all above average, bordering on elite. He kind of hits righties and lefties. He's seen a lot more righties, but his splits don't suggest, at least not yet, that he's kind of like a Jock Peterson, Kike Hernandez, can't hit against the same-sided guys. Defensively, not enough tape, probably average at best, but that's good enough if the bat is what it looks like. The cons to Rios, the Dodgers seem desperate to add a third baseman if it's not Justin Turner. So that kind of worries me a bit. He's 26. So maybe internally the Dodgers have some questions about his abilities at third base. Okay. So Rios is candidate number 1. Candidate number 2, Chris Taylor. Pegged mostly as a utility guy, but he's obviously a guy that deserves regular playing time. He could be at third base primarily in theory. He has played there a tad. Now, he didn't play at all in 2020, just 24 times since joining the Dodgers. But I'm just going to operate under the assumption that if the guy could play shortstop, he could play third base. As a hitter, he's above average every single year since 2017, a pretty consistent OPS of 800 to 850, 17 to 20 home runs a year. And I just think, where else is he going to play? If Lux takes second base, if Pollock kind of proves that he's an everyday guy in left field, I'd love to get Taylor everyday action. You've got guys that can do the sort of utility role in McKinstry, not to mention younger guys who could use some outfield reps like DJ Peters, etc. Okay, 2 more options. Not likely, but Will Smith, potentially, theoretically, could be in the mix at third base. He played 43 games at third in 2018 before AA and AAA. So maybe they move Smith to third base and open up some at-bats for Ruiz. I'm unlikely, but I'm tossing that out there. Okay. So the last name I want to mention is Marcus Simeon. This is the external option with which I think it's worth comparing. 2019, unbelievable. 5th in Major League Baseball in wins above replacement. He was basically tied with Cody Bellinger, who won the MVP in wins above replacement, just for context. And this is a middle infielder. 33 home runs, 890 OPS. Absolutely insane year. You're in my fantasy baseball league with me. He convinced me to draft him far too early in fantasy last year, and I'm not bitter about it at all, I promise, okay? You might hear that and think, well, what's the problem? Well, 2019 was an outlier. To say that is an understatement. Weighted runs created plus is a tool that basically shows how far above or below average a hitter is. 100 is league average. 2019, the only season in Simeon's career he has been above average as a hitter. The key for 2019 was his slugging percentage. 522 in 2019 was about 100 points higher than it had ever been. He's only been over 400 twice since 2013. 2020, on the other hand, worst offensive season of his rookie year. The StatCast is horrifying. 12th percentile in exit velocity, 9th percentile in hard hit percentage, 10th percentile in expected on base percentage, on and on. He had 8 barrels in all of 2020. 8 barrels, okay? And StatCast, that's kind of unkind to him as a whole. Even in 2019, below 45th percentile in exit velocity and hard hit. So defensively, he's really good. There's value there, even if the bat isn't elite. But the problem is you're not paying for a guy like Kike Hernandez. We're talking about a guy projected to make $10 to $14 million a year, depending on length of contract, at age 31. So that's a lot of talking from me, and I apologize to everybody that had to listen to all that. But we've got Edwin Rios, we've got Chris Taylor, maybe you throw Will Smith in, Marcus Simeon. How do you assess those 4 names and where you would go, Daniel?
I'll start with Simeon, since he's the one guy who some people might not be familiar with. You did a good job of pretty much laying out his career there. He had the one outlier year in 2019 when he finished 3rd in the MVP voting. So obviously, if the Dodgers were getting that guy, we'd all be, on board. Yeah. That would be an awesome signing. He's a good defender. Had a good year offensively that year, but the problem is every other year of his career, he's not only has not been that guy, he hasn't been anywhere close. So I don't think he's much of a needle mover, especially since he would probably be playing third base with the Dodgers. Yeah. He could have an average bat at shortstop and still be a plus player. But when you're talking about third base, you want a guy who's going to swing the bat there, especially considering the names that are out there that could potentially sign with the Dodgers and the ones they have, like the Edwin Rioses, the Chris Taylors of the world, like you mentioned. So I think we know the Dodgers are gonna add a right-handed bat at some point this offseason, or at least that's what they've been telling us the whole time. So I don't think they'd lie to us. I think there's a right-handed bat coming in. Third base has just always made the most sense because that's where they have a clear opening with Justin Turner being a free agent. But it doesn't have, they don't have to, they could bring in a right-handed bat that doesn't play third base. One name who's been out there who I'm sure we'll get to is Marcel Ozuna, who plays a little left field, but is mostly a DH. So if let's say they were to sign Ozuna, that means that they would essentially be going with their in-house options at third base, which means it would be a combination of Rios and Chris Taylor, and maybe even, Max Muncy slides over there a little bit, which those are all really good options. Rios is the least proven of the bunch, but like you said, his numbers so far in his career are off the charts. So I feel like he's earned more at bats. I don't know if it'll come at third base. I don't know if they trust him there defensively enough. I think, like you said, he could probably be average at third base. I don't think anyone would expect him to win, gold gloves over there, but he could be average. And Chris Taylor, we know he can move all around, play anywhere, and he's going to be a plus defender. So let's say if they were to sign an Ozuna, I would feel really comfortable with the internal options. I don't think it would be a one guy playing there every day. Yeah. I think there would be, Rios would play there against righties and maybe Taylor against lefties. And then maybe Max Muncy slides over there, once a week or once every couple weeks. And like you said, Will Smith could play there if Keibert Ruiz becomes a thing. I'm not counting on that, but it's possible. I mean, who knows? So I like the internal options at third base. I still think most likely that whatever right-handed bat they're gonna get will be a third baseman. Yeah. I still think it's gonna be Justin Turner. Who we'll see, but. I like the Dodgers options. I think they're going to be fine no matter what. I just think they need to add an impact right-handed bat regardless of position. Like, I don't think it has to be a third baseman.
Yeah, I think it's like, the thing with Turner is I feel a sense of desperation when I see people commenting on our videos or tweeting at us, where it's like, oh my gosh, we need to do something. We need to do something. I guess what this exercise taught me is that the Dodgers' internal options do not demand them to be desperate. It's not like, some of these teams, like you look at the Angels, for example, it's like they are desperate for starting pitching because if they don't add a starting pitcher, the guy they have at number 5 right now is absolute trash probably. I don't even know who it is. Whereas with the Dodgers, it's like you'd love to sign Turner because he's an upgrade defensively and offensively over every name we just mentioned. But I don't think it's the end of the world if they don't get there. I don't think Edwin Rios at third base and Marcel Ozuna as your DH is somehow a worse situation. I would argue it's a better situation than Justin Turner at third base and Edwin Rios as your DH or something like that. And again, I think, it comes down to, do you trust Lux at second and do you trust A.J. Pollock in left? Because if you look at A.J. Pollock as an everyday guy, then where are Chris Taylor's at-bats going to be coming from? And this is a guy who's really, really good. So I do think they need to get there. Now, let me ask the Justin Turner question, because I'm saying I don't think they're desperate enough. Does DJ LeMahieu signing, do any of these moves make you change the stance that we've talked about, which is we're not really comfortable going beyond 2 years on a deal for Justin Turner? Maybe a third-year team option, but guaranteed 3 years. Has anything shifted for you on that?
No, nothing has shifted for me. I'm still at 2 years, maybe a team option for a third year, if anything. But I don't see a reason, just because LeMahieu's off the board, I don't think that's a reason to increase your offer. If anything, I feel like suitors are kind of going away for Justin Turner. I know the Yankees weren't going to sign him, but there's other teams out there who seem to be, going elsewhere. Like the Blue Jays are pretty much the one team that's been linked to Turner all winter. But apparently Vladdy Guerrero Jr., he wants to play third base. He's slimmed down a lot. He looks really good now. So I don't think, he's a young bright star in the organization. I think, they'd like to accommodate. They don't want to, piss him off. And they've been linked to George Springer, who, if they add him, I doubt they're adding Turner as well. So I don't really know how many suitors are out there for Justin Turner. So I don't see a reason to increase your offer. And also there's other options out there. We've talked about them at length. I feel like, I guess most of them are trades now that LeMahieu's gone, but Eugenio Suarez, Chris Bryant, all those guys. So I don't think the Dodgers are desperate at all. I think they would even be willing to go into the regular season with the internal options that we just discussed. And there's still, the trade deadline's not till July 31st. So just because you're not improving your club in January and February doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Like we just talked about how we both feel Edwin Rios deserves more playing time. Yeah. Maybe they give him the third base job, and then he has from basically April till July to kind of audition for that job. And if he's not good enough, then you go out and trade for one of the guys I just mentioned, unless they get dealt before, obviously. But we know Chris Bryant is a free agent in a year, so the Cubs are going to deal him. Yeah. We don't know if it's going to be in the offseason or at the deadline. He's going to get dealt. Maybe if the Reds season doesn't go as well as they'd hope, maybe at the deadline they're willing to shop Suarez more than they are now. So I think there's options out there, so the Dodgers really don't have to panic and say, here's 4 years, Justin Turner.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that seems to be, I mean, obviously the massive difference between a guy like Andrew Friedman and us as fans is
Yeah.
that perspective, right? It's like Andrew Friedman, his needle doesn't move because AJ Preller has made another trade. Like he just couldn't care less about Joe Musgrove being traded to the Padres.
Yeah.
It's not like he's like, shoot, now we need to go do something. Where I think as fans so often, it's like we're just hungry for something new. We're hungry for the new shiny toy. And it's like, well, look at what you have because my point with Musgrove, which we're going to talk about a little later, is why would you care if the Padres go at a guy who wouldn't crack your top 6 in your starting rotation? Like, who cares? The Dodgers can't just go, like, are you wanting them to have traded for Musgrove? For what purpose? So unless
no.
they can add somebody who's better than Rios or better than Taylor at third base, then don't be mad that they haven't done anything. And from my perspective, again, is Simeon better than Edwin Rios? I mean, probably. Like, he's definitely better defensively. And who knows whether or not the Dodgers think there's something that they found in 2019 that could make it sustainable. But it's not enough for me to say, well, we already have Rios for free, essentially. So let's go spend $10 to $14 million on Simeon for the next few years. Now, the other piece of that was, well, what if Corey Seager doesn't resign and you've got Marcus Simeon? He could play shortstop and you've kind of got a solution there. But I'd rather the Dodgers aren't planning for what if Corey Seager, obviously they should have contingencies, but how about we just re-sign the guy and then we don't have to worry about this. And so it is interesting to see how those pieces. Now, let me ask one last thing on third base. Will Smith at third. I mean, obviously it doesn't seem like something they've really considered. We know that there are some concerns. I shouldn't even say concerns is a strong word. He wasn't playing catcher defensively in the World Series because the pitching staff preferred throwing to Austin Barnes. We know the Dodgers are deep at catcher with Keibert Ruiz ready to come up. Diego Cartaya, arguably the best catching prospect they have, a couple years away. So it's not like they're desperately in need of him to stick at catcher. Is there any part of you that says, hey, kick the tires on Will Smith III? Again, 43 appearances in 2018 across AA and AAA. So they have kind of tried it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would depend on if Ruiz is ready or not. Yeah. Like, obviously, if they still feel Ruiz needs one more year in the minors, then it's only Smith and Barnes behind the plate, so you can't really do that conversion quite yet. But if Ruiz is ready and even not even necessarily ready to be a full-time starter, but if him and Barnes could split time, then maybe you consider it. But I don't see that happening. Yeah. I still think, even though Smith wasn't catching in the playoffs and they, it was for defensive reasons. Obviously, the pitchers, enjoyed throwing to Austin Barnes. I still think they're high on him long-term defensively. Yeah. He's just young, and like you said, he was a converted infielder, so he still needs to get some more experience behind the plate if he's going to get better. So I don't think they're willing to abort the Will Smith, behind the plate just yet. But hey, we know they love versatility, so it would not be surprising at all to see him, get a few innings here or there at third base. I mean, why not?
Yeah. And I mean, it is interesting when you look at some of like how all these things shake out, right? Because it's like, okay, you have Ruiz, who's either this year or next year ready to be there. Yeah. And then you've got a guy like Michael Busch, who was the first round draft pick a couple years ago, who everybody, if you're following prospect rankings, is just skyrocketing up those lists, number 2 or 3 on some lists. And so he's a guy they're trying to get to fit at second base. So if that's the case, then where does Gavin Lux fit long-term? Can he play shortstop? What about if Corey Seager? I mean, there's all these moving pieces, and you can't make assumptions about what is going to happen in the future. But it is fascinating that the Dodgers do have all these pieces where it's like, well, what do we do here? What do we do here? There's very few guys that are set in stone in the infield. Like you say in the outfield, we know who our center fielder is going to be through 2023. Yeah. We know who our right fielder is going to be until you and I are dead. So, like, if those guys are set in stone, the rest of it, there's some moving pieces. So, I see some people in the chat talking about Pedro Baez. Trust me, we're going to get to Pedro Baez. I've got some questions and some thoughts about Pedro Baez. Alex Wood, also less, as Bob Jones pointed out. I'm not sure too many people, other than our own Matt Moreno, might be too disappointed to see Alex Wood go, although, man, to the freaking Giants. I guess you got to get paid where you get paid, and Farhan probably likes him, but I'll just throw this out there on Alex Wood. I'm not trying to crap on the guy on his way out, but I'm excited at the prospect of him pitching against the Dodgers a few times. I'll just leave it at that if he's a starter. The other big story outside of third base that I think a lot of Dodger fans have kind of worked up a little bit of a panic over is Walker Buehler's contract. Now, last Friday was the deadline to avoid arbitration with guys who were eligible. The Dodgers had 8 players eligible for arbitration. They agreed to deals with 6 of them: Scott Alexander, Dylan Floro, Corey Knebel, Cody Bellinger, Corey Seager, and Julio Urias. Two players they did not, the aforementioned Austin Barnes as well as Walker Buehler. So at this point with those two, the team has kind of got two options: sign a long-term deal or go before the arbiter and allow that person to decide what this person makes. Now, Dodgers and Buehler were $850,000 apart on what the Dodgers were offering, what Buehler wanted. That's the second biggest gap in all of baseball. Carlos Correa and the Astros were $3 million apart. I was tweeting, I hope we can get video of that argument where the Astros are like, no, he was cheating. That's why he's not as good. But anyways, Walker Buehler's in his first year of arbitration. He'll actually get 4 years because of his qualification as a Super 2 player. So I guess, Daniel, the short question is, how worried are you? Is there any level of worry about Walker Buehler? We know he's going to be a Dodger next year, but does any part of this situation worry you?
I don't think it's cause for concern. This is something that happens every year with different organizations. I can't say I fully understand why. Like, I don't know, if you're the Dodgers, why wouldn't you be fine with just giving Walker Buehler an extra $800,000, knowing he's your ace of the future, a guy that you want to sign to a long-term deal? You want him to be a Dodger, maybe even for the rest of his career. So I don't see why it's necessary to do this, but they are. It is what it is. And for those that aren't familiar, like Jeff kind of laid out, real quick, so basically now, if they're not able to agree on either an extension or a deal for this year, then they go to court basically, and they each have their different number of what they feel Walker Buehler should make this year based on his stats, based on past pitchers of his caliber, what they made in their first year of arbitration. So they each plead their case, which it's kind of a weird process. Like, basically the Dodgers are, telling this judge what they think Walker Buehler is not worthy of $4 million. He's only worthy of $3.2 million, which just sounds ridiculous. Like, they're going to say he's had the injury history. He had the blisters last year. Yes, he was great in the playoffs, but he hasn't proven he could be a Cy Young guy in the regular season. And then Walker Buehler is going to turn around and say, yes, all that's true, but I'm the best postseason pitcher on planet Earth right now. Like, I was one of the big reasons we just won the World Series. So it's kind of a weird process. But honestly, I feel like Buehler is someone who would kind of enjoy that. I know there's certain players who do. Most don't, obviously, for for understandable reasons. But I feel like Buehler, he's like big into numbers and stuff. So I feel like he would enjoy like pleading his case in front of a judge. But yeah, ideally they get a long-term deal done with him. Maybe not even a deal that buys out any free agent years, but just buys out the rest of his arbitration, which I think that would make sense for both sides. He doesn't have to go through this process again. So maybe they're discussing that. I don't know. I'm not, getting my hopes up because he's a Scott Boras client. They typically don't like to do extensions. But, I mean, I'm not too concerned. I don't think it's something that Buehler is going to hold against the Dodgers, but at the end of the day, I'd rather, this not be happening. I would have liked it if they just agreed to a deal.
Now, with Buehler, I mean, you and I have talked, and I've kind of said, hey, Buehler is the guy. He would be my top priority to extend long-term of all the guys, Seager, Bellinger, etc. Not to say I don't want either of those other guys.
Right.
But the thing I was thinking about, so again, this is 2021 will be year 1 of 4 where he's arbitration eligible. It means the Dodgers have him no matter what, basically, as long as they can come to some form of an agreement on a 1-year deal. And the cost will always, all 4 years, be below market value. Maybe the 4th year gets close to market value, but below. The thing with Buehler is, as you pointed out, he has missed time, right? So he's been in the majors for 4 years. 3 of those, or excuse me, 2, the first year we're not going to count. 2017, his rookie year. Yeah. We'll ignore that. 2018, he missed starts. 2019, he makes 30 starts. 2020, he missed starts. Would there be any concern for you? He's 26 years old. Would there be any concern with you giving him a massive contract right now? Like I'm not talking, because you mentioned, hey, buying out the 4 years of arbitration, that makes sense. You know he's going to be on the team for those 4 years. Low risk move for everybody. But like if he was like, hey, the only extension I'm signing is I want a 9-year deal. I want a 10-year deal. Now it's going to be cheaper for those first 4 years, but then maybe I want 28 to 30 million, for the last 6, something like that.
Right.
If he says that's what I'm doing, 10 years, $250 million, what would you say?
It's something I would strongly consider, just because it would a deal like that, it would bring down the overall AAV of his contract, because you're buying out the arbitration years. So it would be more now, but then as the contract goes along, you'd be essentially getting him at a bargain. So it's something I would definitely consider. I would be a little hesitant just for all the reasons you laid out. Like he's had Tommy John surgery. He dealt with blisters this last season, which who knows? Those are something that could go away forever and he never has to worry about again, or it could literally like affect him the rest of his career, like
Yeah.
we saw with Rich Hill year in and year out. So I think there would be some cause for concern, but I mean, if he is interested in talking about a deal like that, I think you have to jump on it if you're the Dodgers. Like at the end of the day, it's still Walker Buehler. He's just about to enter the prime of his career. You already know what he's capable of on the biggest stage. Like I feel like some of the time he's missed over the last few years was honestly kind of like a luxury for the Dodgers.
Yeah.
Like if he was on another team that was fighting for a playoff spot, like maybe he wouldn't have missed so much time, but the Dodgers just have such a good record every year. And we know they're making it to the postseason that they could afford to give him as much time as he needs to get healthy, just so he's ready for the postseason. So it's definitely something I would consider if the price is right, but there is some cause for concern.
Yeah, I mean, because the Dodgers, like most people, it's like, well, of course, sign him for 10 years. It's like, well, the Dodgers have him for the next 4. So the Dodgers would be taking on all of the risk in that situation, whereas they can let this play out for 2 more years, 3 more years, even 4 more years before they're really forced to do anything. And if you're the Dodgers and you ultimately have the perspective of money is not going to be the determining factor in this, then you can just let this play out. I think the Corey Seager situation is showing us that to some degree, where they're like, we can just let this play out. Let's get 1 more season to see what he is, because we trust that we're not going to get outbid. Corey Seager probably enjoys being the Dodgers shortstop. And so he's not going to take less money to leave, and he's not going to take the same amount of money to leave. So the Dodgers can just say, that's fine. Let him become a free agent. Let him test the market, like they're probably doing with Justin Turner right now, and saying, with Seager, all right, well, whatever the number is, like, okay, they offered you 9 years, $250 million. Okay, fine. Here, we'll match that. Call it good. Set pen to paper. They probably feel the same way with Buehler, I would imagine. Now, that's all assuming that money is irrelevant, as it should be to a big market club like the Dodgers that makes hand over fist dollars and dollars and dollars. But that's how I would approach it. I would just say, let's play out the next 4 years. Now, I mean, if you get 2 years in and there's a deal to be made, make it. But, the Dodgers probably are in a position where they don't feel the urge to buy out the next 4 years of risk-free contracts that they get with Walker Buehler.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think there's maybe a shorter extension in there that would make more sense for both sides, and it would be less risky if maybe they just buy out his arbitration years and then like 1 free agent year or something. So I think there could be an extension in there that they're working out, but at the end of the day, I think it's just going to come down to arbitration, and he'll sign his 1-year deal, and then we'll see what happens next year if it's the same thing all over again.
Yeah, and it's worth noting they got to this situation with Chris Taylor and Max Muncy a year ago. Yeah. Chris Taylor bought out all the remaining years of his arbitration-eligible years, so I believe it's this year and 1 more. And then Max Muncy, excuse me, I think this might be Chris Taylor's last year.
This is Chris Taylor's last year, yeah.
And then Muncy bought out his arbitration years, and the Dodgers got a team option for his first year of free agency. So when it comes to Austin Barnes, we don't have to spend a ton of time on this, or a ton of money on this. But that to me feels like where this is headed, is kind of a 2-year deal. Now, it will be interesting. Do they want the 3rd year? Or the Dodgers going to say, hey, we're just going to take you for as long as we can have you for basically for free, and you're already here, and then it's going to be Keibert Ruiz time. But to me, it feels like, I mean, the Dodgers and Austin Barnes haggling over $150,000 or whatever it is, feels a little bit silly.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't know what's going to happen with that one, but at the end of the day, it's pennies that they're fighting over. So yeah, like you said, I don't think it's worth talking too much over. It's Austin Barnes. He'll probably be here for his final 2 years, and then it'll be Smith and Ruiz after that, I feel like.
Yeah. Well, let's shift from the arbitration information. Well, let me guess this. We got a bunch of people watching us live on YouTube, Periscope, Facebook, etc. I'd love to hear from you. The question that I asked Daniel was, would you give Walker Buehler a 9 or 10-year deal right now if that was the option? The second thing is, do you want Austin Barnes here beyond the 2 years? So I'd love to hear from you. LA Dodgers 2020 World Series champs, that is true, also a username, wants to keep Barnes. I don't know if that's for the 2 years or beyond that, but I'd love to hear. What do you think about Walker Buehler? If he says, I need 10 years, $250 million, so you're going to get a discount on the 6 free agent years, but I'm going to get $25 million a year for my, which is $20 million more than he's set to make this year. What do you say? So a lot of people, we're getting mixed up Nick's numbers here. We got a no to Buehler. We've got a yes from Pepe Dub 111. We've got no from Blink 182 Lives. I still love that name every time we see it. No to a Walker 10-year deal. THP says. Yeah, I mean, Stompy Joe says, hate to say it, but let's not forget about Lincecum. I think that's a fascinating comp because they're both little guys. Now, Lincecum had a super funky delivery, so I think there's probably some differences there. But yeah, I mean, that's the reason that the Dodgers would say, hey, we'll just play this year by year, especially because, I mean, the 4 years gets them through Walker Buehler's age 30 season. So a guy like that, what's he going to look like as a 33-year-old, 34-year-old? I think it's a reasonable question. Jaime Araujo says yes to Walker Buehler. General Jonix says, no way I'm giving Walker more than 6 years. Paul Rubio says Buehler 8-200. Well, yes, less years we would all say yes to, but that's what we go. Derek Wong says, yeah, I would do 10 with Walker Buehler. Pepe Dub says, give them the money. Chris Carrillo says 9 years. Laura Lara says not yet for Walker Buehler. Andrew Ortega says no. Gluehead says give him a 20-year contract. So Gluehead, coincidentally or not coincidentally, wants to give him a 20-year contract. Michael says he likes Barnes, good competitor. Gardner says extend Buehler. Hawaiian Kira says not in 10 years. Trying to read these names just in real time and hoping for the best on pronunciations. I'm going to be honest. Well. It's hard. It's hard. Well. Paul Rubio says Barnes stays for 2 years and then he's gone. Let's see what else we got here. Boy in Blue Guerra. They need to bring JT back ASAP. Chris Carrillo says power pitches. Gluehead needs more glue with Stompy Joe's response, which, maybe less glue if he wants a 20-year deal. I don't want Walker Buehler making $25 million a year as a 45-year-old. Maybe it's just me, though, but
it's not just you.
It's not just me. Okay, perfect. All right. Well, hey, let's shift gears a little bit from arbitration because there was a fun article that I thought was going to be the headliner because I wasn't sure we'd have anything to talk about tonight, which was an article that Jason Stark wrote for The Athletic. Now, I recognize many people may not be subscribed to The Athletic. Jason Stark wrote an article basically suggesting a new idea that he has for the designated hitter. And this was an idea that he ran past a former pitcher, a former DH, an executive, and a coach, and got very mixed reviews on it. And I'll admit, I was like a roller coaster reading through this because my initial reaction was one thing. The more I thought about it, I started to shift to a different situation. But here's the short explanation for his idea. Now, this is in response to the conversation about whether the National League is going to adopt the designated hitter permanently. Most people think the answer is yes. The only question is whether that starts this year or starts next year. His idea is very simple. Your designated hitter stays in the game as long as your starting pitcher does. So if your starting pitcher is still on the mound, the designated hitter gets to hit. As soon as the starting pitcher comes off the field, gets taken out of the game, the designated hitter either needs to be subbed into a position spot or immediately gets taken off. So initial reactions. I've got pros and cons written down, Daniel, but I'm curious what your initial reactions, same with people in the chat. What are your initial reactions to the idea that the designated hitter stays in as long as the starter does?
Yeah, I don't like it. I don't know. I don't think we need to get cute like that. Let's either do the designated hitter or let's not do it. And just talking like from the Dodgers perspective, we saw in 2020 how they used the DH. They basically used it to get their main guys like off their feet for a day, but still keeping them in the lineup so you still have their bat in there. So I mean, if this rule is in place, then you kind of lose that, right? Like, let's say you want to give Cody Bellinger a day off from center field, but he's still in the lineup. Well, now he's only in your lineup as long as the starting pitcher goes, and who knows, that might only be one inning. Like, let's say your starting pitcher gives up 8 runs in last one inning, and he's out of the game. Now you're chasing 8 runs, and you don't have a DH. So I don't like it. I think there are some positives to it. Like, I guess it appeases the people who like NL baseball. They like the strategy of it, the double switches and stuff. So all that would kind of stay. Like, we'd still have late game double switches, but overall, I'd rather them just go with the universal DH and let's not, overthink it too much.
Yeah. I mean, so I'll admit my initial reaction was I really like this idea. And the reason is because I like starting pitching. I like anything that gets us away from the opener and that gets us back towards some sort of normalcy where a starting pitcher goes more than 4 innings, more than 5 innings, more than 6 innings if possible. So I love that because this incentivizes teams to leave their starting pitcher in, to develop starting pitching, to rely on that, etc. And I'm trying to think of this not even from a Dodger biased perspective, but I like that. And secondly, I like the DH And I like exactly what you just described, which is sort of the National League maneuvering that this maintains. So I like that we get no pitchers hitting ever, but rather than having to pinch hit every time through the lineup, take your pitcher out, etc., you get a designated hitter for 5 or 6 innings, probably 2 at bats, and then you still get the opportunity to pinch hit, etc. later on. So those were my initial reactions for why I liked it. Now, the reasons that swung me sort of coming back the other way were one that was pointed out in the article, which is it increases the possibility of blowouts. And you described this. If you have to take your starting pitcher out early, chances are it's because you're losing and giving up a bunch of runs. So now the team that gives up a bunch of runs has to take out one of their best hitters. That's problematic. So I agree completely. The second thing is it penalizes the home team. The home team has always had an advantage, but now the home team, which bats second, would have to make a decision on their starting pitcher essentially before the other team would. So the designated hitter of the visitor team gets to hit before their pitcher comes out for the bottom half of the inning. Right. The home team, it would be reversed. That's problematic, especially when you get to the playoffs, when the home field advantage is a big deal, and all of a sudden that's a big one. So those are my issues. I don't know if there's ways to navigate around some of that, but I do like the idea of incentivizing teams to get their starting pitcher later in games, and I like the idea of combining the designated hitter with what I do like about the National League, which is the maneuvering at the end. So I don't know if there's a middle ground there, which I don't think there is, but there's stuff that I like and there's stuff that I don't like, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I definitely would agree that there's some positives. Like, I'm not a fan of the opener either, so obviously this would take it away. Like, you're not going to throw a guy out there to start a game for 1 inning and knowing you're going to lose your DH as soon as you take him out. So it would get rid of the opener, which is a good thing. I'm curious though. I don't remember if it said in the article. Would this just be only in the NL and then AL's regular DH, or would they both?
I think it would be both leagues. The sense, I mean, obviously, this is pure speculation. It hasn't been seriously talked about. Although Bud Black is one of the proponents of this sort of idea. He has mentioned it in interviews. So there are real baseball people talking about it. But I believe it would be for both leagues.
Yeah, I will say I want the 2 leagues to have the same rules. I don't like one league playing by one set of rules and the other playing by another set. So at the end of the day, I'm fine with whatever decision they make. Just make it consistent for both leagues.
Now, Blink 182 100 Lives 100 asks a really fascinating question that I think gets at this, which is, what do you think about Major League, or he says, do you guys think it's pointless for Major League Baseball to make these rules that try to dictate how the game is played when every team plays the game differently? So I'm thinking about this potential, like the designated hitter type rule versus, this idea, for example, which tries to remove openers from the game, although some teams might want to go that route. I think about any potential rules about shifting, that type of thing. How do you feel about rules that are reactionary to the way that some teams just have preferred to play because of statistics or whatever?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of a lot of the rules MLB has put in place the last few years, whether it be to try to speed up the game. Like, I don't think those rules are working like they hoped. Cutting 2 or 3 minutes off a game, I don't think that's going to get more people to watch all of a sudden because it's 2 hours and 58 minutes instead of 3 hours and 2 minutes. But I'm definitely not for rules that affect strategy. So in the last couple years, the rules of that nature have been the 3 batter rule for relievers. And also we saw last year the extra innings rule with a runner on second base. I don't like rules like that completely switch up, the strategy of a game. Like, now we're in extra innings and there's a runner on second, so we feel like we're forced to bunt.
We're gonna disagree there, Daniel. We're gonna disagree there.
I like that it speeds up games, but as a whole, like, when my team's involved in one of those games, I hate it. But yeah, I don't think MLB should be trying to influence strategy with some of these rules. Like, I don't want them to ban the shift. Yeah. I think the shift is going a little too far at this point, like where every batter, there's a different shift for them. But I don't know, like, how you would fix that without completely banning it, period. So, I wouldn't ban the shift if that's what it meant. So I don't like I said, I don't like when they, influence strategy based on silly rules that don't really, change a whole lot.
Yeah, and I mean, the shift, for example, it's like there's an easy solution to that, which is batters will eventually adjust and adapt. The shift will get so good that batters will just learn to hit the other way, and all of a sudden this ceases to become a problem. DJ LeMahieu, for example, is a guy they talked about that you can't shift against him because he can hit it wherever he wants. My only disagreement is in the extra inning rule, because I don't see how that actually impacts the strategy in a way that it doesn't disadvantage certain teams who had some sort of particular strategy in, like the shift, for example. The Dodgers are obsessed with the shift. They shift more and better than everybody else. So now it's a disadvantage. Whereas putting a guy on second, to me, seems like it's fair for everybody. Nobody is bunting, so it's not really impacting anybody negatively more so than another team. I guess maybe if you want to argue like a power hitting team suffers more, but I don't know. That one to me, and I just joke. There's nothing worse for me than like watching a Dodger game. I say nothing worse. There's lots of worse things. This is all relative. But it's like a Wednesday night and it's like 10:30 p.m. and it's the 11th inning and I'm like, all right, well, I'm here. I'm not going to turn it off because what if I turn it off and then something amazing happens? And then all of a sudden it's 1:15 and it's innings the bottom of the 17th and I'm like, this is so stupid. I hate myself for staying up to watch this. Like, to me, I'm like, okay, the sooner that we can end those games, the better. So that's all I've got to say about the extra inning rule.
No, trust me, as someone who live tweets every single game from the Dodger Blue account, I'm all on board with what you just said. Like, a random Wednesday night, I don't need to be watching 15 innings of baseball. So I get it. At the end of the day, I think it's fine for the regular season. If they were ever trying to put it in the postseason, that's where I would get really angry. But yeah, the main thing I don't like about that is like you could have like a team goes out there, gets 3 outs, right? So they put up a 0, they strand the guy at second, and then to win the game, all you need is like a ground ball to the right side and then a sac fly. It's like it's pretty anticlimactic, but no, I'm fine with it in the regular season just because I don't need to be watching 18 inning games on a Wednesday or Thursday night in June. That once the postseason rolls around, that's gonna have no impact on anything. So I don't mind it for the regular season.
Yeah, well, there's lots out there, and like I said, we're 5 weeks from spring training, just hoping for things to talk about. So Jason Stark, thank you for writing that article. So here's what we're gonna do. I got a few odds and ends we're gonna talk about, and then we're gonna do this hat giveaway. So get ready for that. I've got a good trivia question. I'd like to think. I tested it out on my brother, and he didn't get it, at least initially. So I feel pretty decent about that. And then at the end, we'll take mailbag questions if anybody's got them. But odds and ends, a big story that Dodger fans were interacting with today. The Padres trade for Joe Musgrove. The Padres give up their number 7 prospect as well as 2 of their other top 20 prospects, according to MLB.com. I pointed out last year was the first year of his career that Musgrove's ERA was under 4. The first year, his ERA was above average, according to ERA minus. This is a pretty meh move to me. It feels like it just gained traction because we're desperate for something. You agree?
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like everyone in the baseball world just loves the Padres so much right now. And I understandably so. Like, they've made some good moves. And, I mean, they're the only team really making moves. So I guess they're bringing some excitement to the offseason. But for me, this move wasn't a huge needle mover. Like you just said, he's had one season where his ERA was under 4, and it was barely under 4 at that. So he's a back of the rotation type guy, which – we talked about on the show. I remember one episode we compared the Dodgers and the Padres rotations, and I remember saying, like, I feel like they're pretty even at the top, and it's just kind of at the bottom of the rotation with the Dodgers have a lot more depth, so that's where I feel like the Dodgers kind of separated themselves. So that this is a guy who, if he's the 5th starter in your rotation, that's not bad at all. Definitely gives the Padres some more depth. They had a lot of question marks at the back end of their rotation, so I felt like they needed one more starter, and they got it. I'm not going to pretend to know anything about the prospects they gave up. They gave up a bunch of them. We'll see if those guys amount to anything. But one thing I will say is the fact that the Padres felt the need to go out and make another move for a starter probably means that Nelson Lamet might not be healthy. We don't really know his status at the moment. We know he missed the postseason last year due to an elbow injury, which is never what you want to see with a starting pitcher, especially one like him who's already had Tommy John. So who knows how healthy or not healthy he is. But I mean, the fact that they're still going out and getting starters probably tells you all you need to know about that. And also probably tells you all you need to know about how much trust they have in Chris Paddock, boy.
Your boy, the sheriff.
who's falling further and further down in that rotation every day. He didn't even pitch in the National League Division Series when they had no starters on the roster, so I could only imagine what's going to happen now that they actually have some. But yeah, like you said, it's a mad move for the Padres. Good for them. They got a 5th starter. but it's not a needle mover by any means.
Nope. Okay, second one here. Pedro Baez to the Trastros. Did you see the contract numbers for Pedro Baez?
I was a bit surprised. Good for Pedro. He got a nice little solid deal with the Astros. I mean, his deal when you compare it with Trinan's, like it's only a couple million less,
Yeah.
and I'm taking Trinan all day, every day there. So, yeah, good for Pedro. I wish him personal success with the Astros. I wish that team zero success.
Yeah.
It sucks that he went there, but at the end of the day, he's got to get a deal, and he got a pretty good one.
2 years, $12.5 million guaranteed, plus incentives that could earn him an extra $1 million in 2022. There's also a third-year team option. I mean, I was expecting him to be in the $3 to $4 million range. I think he's good, but not great. He wasn't even on Major League Baseball trade rumors top 50 free agents, and yet he goes out and gets just a tad under what Trevor May got from the Mets. This is crazy, and this is always sort of a misleading stat, but I'm going to say it anyways. Pedro Baez is now the 25th highest paid reliever in all of baseball, according to average annual value. Archie Bradley got $6 million. I mean, to me, like, I can't imagine paying $6.5 million for Pedro Baez for 2 years and feeling good. I mean, like, I wanted Baez back. He was in my offseason plan, but if you had told me he was making $6.5 million, it would have been, hey, good luck to you. More power to you if you can get that money. So there you go. Pedro Baez to the Astros. They're speaking of relief pitchers and rumors. One that we had an article today up on DodgerBlue.com. Jeremy Jeffress, another guy I joked we just want every guy who was good in 2017 or 2018. Right. Couple years under a 2 ERA in 18 and 20, really bad in 19. Any interest in you, Jeremy Jeffress?
I just remember Jeffress from when he was on the Brewers in 2018. Justin Turner hit that game-winning homer off of him, and then the first thing he said after the game was that Turner got lucky or whatever. so I've hated him ever since just because of those comments.
Fair enough.
But I mean, he had a decent year with the Cubs last year, nothing to drool over. But I mean, he's a fine middle reliever, I guess. I don't know what the money would be if it's the same $1,005,000 or 1 year $5 million that we talked about with Kirby Yates. I'd much rather have Yates. I would take Trevor Rosenthal over him. Obviously, Brad Hand. That's no question about it. But there's other guys out there I would prefer. If they signed Jeffress, I wouldn't be mad about it. But I wouldn't be super stoked either. Like, yes, we got our our next closer or anything.
Yeah. Okay, next on the agenda, Marcel Ozuna. Rumor connecting him to the Dodgers. We addressed it a little bit last week on a shorter video. And I'll say this, the guy who was the source on this was, he's had a rough week when it comes to reporting rumors. So whether there's any validity to this remains to be seen. But let's assume the interest is real. What do you think? I mean, I'll throw out some numbers. Last year with the Braves, led the league in home runs with 18, 338 average, which was third in the National League. Weighted runs created was second in the National League. He hits righties. He hit lefties. He's been top 10% in all of baseball in exit velocity every year since 2017. Hard hit percentage, top 7% every year, except one. How do you feel? I guess the question more so is, obviously you like Ozuna's bat. How do you feel about paying big money for multiple years for a guy that's essentially only a DH?
Yeah, I mean, like you just said the numbers. How do you not love that bat? The guy absolutely mashes. We saw it in the NLCS. He had a good series. But I don't see a clear fit with the Dodgers. I mean, obviously, it would depend on if there's a universal DH. If there is, then there's more of a fit because he could fit into that DH spot and maybe play left field, a couple times a week here and there. Obviously, in the regular season, it's not a huge deal. Like, the Dodgers are going to win the division or make the playoffs, like, regardless. Like, they could probably play Marcel Ozuna in left field 162 games and still make the playoffs. But once you get into the postseason, I don't think that's the guy you want in left field. So he would be more of a DH. So I think if the Dodgers are going to give money, you ideally want to give it to a guy that plays the field at least, not just a full-time DH. But if they think he's that much of a difference maker, which if you look at his numbers last year, I mean, he was like anyone would take those numbers, then I think it would make sense. But at the end of the day, we see the Dodgers linked to almost every free agent. And that doesn't mean they're going to sign him. They rarely ever sign him. So it just makes sense for the player and for the Dodgers to to say that they're interested or whatever, because if anything, that just drives up the price for whoever is going to ultimately sign him. So if I had to guess, I don't think Ozuna is gonna end up a Dodger. I think I don't think he's going back to the Braves either, which I think they need him the most. Like if they want to, especially with what the Mets are doing, but I don't see him with the Dodgers. But hey, they could. Friedman could surprise me. That would probably be the most surprising thing, the surprising move he makes, if they go out and give Ozuna like a 4-year, $80 million deal or something like that. I just don't see it happening.
Okay, the numbers are different, but short answer: Justin Turner or Marcel Ozuna. You can only have one. Who do you want? DH is 2021 and forever.
Am I accounting for the price, or are we just talking players?
Like, if you could just have one, so you got to pay, $6 million more, whatever, a year for Ozuna for a couple more years, but you can only have one.
I'd probably go Ozuna just because I feel like he's with the bat. Like if you stick him in that lineup, that's pretty unfair. I like either one though. I think Justin Turner obviously makes more sense because he plays third base and he would be cheaper, so they would save more money to pay Seager, Bellinger, and those guys. So I think Turner's more likely. But if I had to pick one, I'll go Ozuna.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. Stompy Joe says both. Robert Rocha says Ozuna all day. General Jonix says JT any day. Laura Lara says JT. So yeah, I mean, who knows? It's a fun one to talk about. Ozuna's bat it's hard to argue with. Okay, last one, and then we're going to get to our trivia question. Cody Bellinger has shoulder surgery, hasn't swung a bat. Briefly, any concern for you when you read that headline?
I mean, a little bit. Ideally, you want a report comes out that says he's healthy, swinging a bat, ready to go, like in a perfect world. But it is what it is. Like if he's not ready for opening day, that's not something I'm gonna lose sleep over. Like he'll be ready when he's ready. It's not a great report, but I don't think it's anything to get worried over. Like we still got a month until spring training, like until they even report for spring training, and then another month and a half after that. So he's still got plenty of time to get ready for opening day.
Yeah, we've got some more people chiming in, by the way. Rory Calhoun says Ozuna, beast. A couple people pointing out they want JT for his clubhouse leadership. Boy in Blue Guerra says Ozuna. Derek Wang says Ozuna. Michael, JT, of course. Chris Carrillo, JT. So we've got some mixed results there. So, all right. Well, here we go. We're going to do a giveaway. So we've got 4 of these hats, I believe. We're going to give one away per week every Monday night for the next 4 weeks. Very cool hat. And again, the best part is it's got the World Series champs patch on it. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask Daniel a question first. And then if he screws this up, I'll let you guys clean up the pieces and tell me where he's wrong. If he gets it right, I've got a backup question for you, okay?
Okay.
So here's the trivia question, Daniel. And again, if you're paying attention, we're on the honor system here. But wins above replacement from 2015 to 2020. Can you name the top 5 Dodgers in wins above replacement? 2015 to 2020.
2000. Okay.
And I'm not going to make you do it in order because I think that's more of a challenge, but we'll see.
Okay. Clayton Kershaw is in there.
Kershaw is number 1. That's the only confirmation I'm going to give you.
Cody Bellinger is in there just based on one season alone.
Okay, so we've got Kershaw, Bellinger. So far, your guesses.
Seager.
So
that's 3. 2015. Is Chris Taylor in there?
Okay, Chris Taylor's guess number 4. You got one more spot.
Okay. Oh, you haven't been giving me confirmation here?
No. I haven't told you if you're right or wrong.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. So Chris Taylor's my 4th guess. 5th. Who am I missing? It's between.
You're missing an obvious one.
Really? Oh, I can't. I'm not gonna ask for hints. I'll say.
So you've got Kershaw.
Justin Turner for the 5th one.
Okay. So you've got. So this is good. You missed the guy that I thought you were gonna miss. You got 4 out of 5. You got 4 out of 5. I'm not to tell you who your 5th one is. So I'm gonna throw it out to the people. Tell me who he got wrong and who belongs in that place. First person to get that wins a Dodger hat. So we'll see. This was sort of the person that I won't say it was super surprising to me. Let's see. Okay, we got lots of guesses. None of them are correct so far.
Ooh.
None of them are correct so far. We've got
So I guess Kershaw, Seager, Bellinger, Turner, and Taylor is who I guessed.
Yep.
So I got 4 out of the 5.
You got 4 out of the 5. You're missing the number 4 person.
Okay.
And the person that you guessed wrong was, let's see, either 6th or 7th. The person you guessed, 7th. Yeah, you guessed the 7th person. Man, still nobody. This is awesome. Mookie Betts, not correct, by the way. We got some good guesses. Okay, so this was not correct. Somebody just guessed Jock Peterson, who is actually surprisingly 6th on the list, ahead of Chris Taylor.
Okay.
Maybe not surprising.
That's what I was debating between.
Okay, we've got
Turner.
a winner. Derek Wang with the correct guess. Yasmani Grandal. Grandal, 4th on the list.
His name did not even cross my mind.
Did not even cross your mind. We had a lot of Muncy guesses. We had a lot of Kenley Jansen guesses. Those guys were right there. So let's see. So Kershaw was 1. Turner is 2. Seager is 3. Grandal is 4. Bellinger is 5. Peterson is 6. Taylor is 7. Muncy is 8th. And Jansen is 9th. Do you want to guess who's 10th on the list?
Who did I even miss at this point? Jock was in there.
Jock was in there. Right? Jock was 6th. So he was gonna be like, if I anyways, it's Yasiel Puig.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
Puig.
Yeah, so we had some people get some throwbacks, guys like Adrian Gonzalez, that kind of thing. Gonzalez was 12th. We had an Andre Ethier guest. He was 16th. Mookie is actually 14th. He played like half of one season, and he's 14th on that list, just behind Howie Kendrick. The only list that Mookie Betts is just behind Howie Kendrick on.
Give it about 20 games into next year, and he'll move up on that list.
And actually, no, my mistake. Puig is not 10th because after Muncy, then we start getting some pitchers. I'll give you one last trivia question. Which Dodger pitcher is the number 10 on the list? 10th overall. So Kershaw and Jansen, the only 2 pitchers with more wins above replacement since 2015.
Is it Ryu?
Close. Ryu's 5th.
Maeda?
Maeda is 3rd. So Walker Buehler right in between them. So Maeda is 10th in Dodger wins above replacement. So Derek Wang, congratulations. All you've got to do, Derek, is find Dodger Blue 1958 on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. One of those 3 are the best. And then send the main account a message confirming that you're following, confirming you are who you said you are, etc., and we'll get you the hat mailed to you, okay? So, Derek, congratulations. And proud of all of you, by the way, because it's clear that nobody tried to Google this, or you're just not very good at figuring out Google because it took you a few minutes. So, Derek Wang, congratulations. That was a good pull. Yasmani Grandal. We probably had 40 people guessing before we got the Grandal. So
yeah, well done for Derek, because like I said, Grandal did not even cross my mind.
So there you go. So here's what we got. So the hat is going to you. And again, join us every Monday night for the next. So we got 3 more weeks. We're going to be giving away hats like this. And then the second thing is, if you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel, make sure you're subscribed, because we're going to be giving out this DVD to one person who's subscribed here. We're going to give one away to a subscriber on Twitter, and one to a subscriber on Instagram. We may have already done the Twitter giveaway. I'm not entirely positive about that.
I think we did the Twitter one.
Okay, so I'm not positive about Instagram. That's the one social media I'm not personally on, but we haven't done the YouTube one. So make sure you're subscribed here, ring the notification bell. You'll get all the notes on that. We've got a couple more minutes left before we go. Any mailbag questions you want, throw them in the chat. Daniel and I can answer them. I'll make one last quick announcement. Stay tuned. So if you're not following, again, if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, make sure you're subscribed. We post a video just about every day with news and updates and that kind of thing. Tomorrow, we've got a fun one. Justin Lorber from Future Dodgers on Twitter, if you follow there, is going to be joining me to talk about the international prospects that the Dodgers just got finished signing. The Dodgers signed 2 of the top 8, I believe, guys available. Yep. So a lot of excitement there. So make sure you're subscribed to YouTube, because you're going to get the stuff there. The YouTube is Dodger Blue 1958 is what to search. Dodger Blue 1958. That's all of our social media. So it's DodgerBlue.com, and then Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube is Dodger Blue 1958, I believe. So stay there with that. Somebody's asking who's the number 10 pitcher. I'm assuming that's a joke, but it's actually Julio Urias. There you go. Number 10 pitcher. Alex Wood is number 6 on that list. That would have been a great trivia question. Ahead of Rich Hill, Zach Greinke, Ross Stripling. Pedro Baez, our boy, comes in at number 11. If you want to talk hitters, Puig was 8th, Hernandez, Kike 9th, Austin Barnes 10th, Chase Utley 11th. So there you go. Wow. Manny Machado 17th, in case you were curious. Matt Kemp 22nd. I did have somebody ask where Matt Kemp ranked. He is 22nd on that list. Let's see. Terry Benthal. I mean, I don't think either of us are prepared to answer this. Do you think there will be a strike in 2022? I'll just say this. I think it's very clear that the owners and the Players Association don't get along very well, and that anytime there's potential for a strike, it's on the table. Possible. All that said, I can't imagine any point in the next 18 months, everybody coming into a point where they're just going to let it blow up. This year was as close as I think I can't imagine it getting any closer. You and I were doing shows, and I did not I realistically didn't think we were going to have a baseball season. Same. So I'll get that. Okay, last question that Kevin Herrera just is going to flood the chat with. Should the Dodgers still throw at the Astros? If the Dodgers and Astros were to meet again, Daniel, in your estimation, should the Dodgers continue to throw at them?
They are going to meet again this year. They're playing again both in Houston and in LA. I'm gonna say no. I don't think we need to drag this on forever. All that's gonna happen if the Dodgers throw out the Astros is a Dodger player will get suspended and no Astros players will. So I don't think that's necessary at this point. Just go out and beat them. That's way more fun, anyways.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, last one. I'll throw one more at you because a couple people asked this one. One free agent that's still available that you would like to sign. We've probably named the 2 most likely guys. How about this? I mean, yeah, Justin Turner, I think is likely. How about I'll put you on the spot. We can each name this. One other guy not named Justin Turner that you think that you would want to predict the Dodgers will sign. I think we agree. They're going to sign a hitter. Justin Turner is likely, potentially someone else, whether it's a designated hitter, whether it's a pitcher. Who do you got? One free agent left.
I still think Kirby Yates is the name to look out for. Yeah. We've heard some smoke surrounding him and the Dodgers. We know he's probably going to reach a decision pretty soon from what we've seen. And he makes sense in the Dodgers bullpen. It would just be a 1-year deal. 1 year, $5 million is reportedly what he's asking for. That's very manageable for me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go out
especially if Baez
and say,
is making $6.5 million.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to go out and say like Trevor Bauer just because I know that's not realistic. Like I'm trying to be realistic here, so that's why I'm picking Yates.
Okay, I mean Yates is probably where I'd go. I'll throw a random name. I mean, I don't know why I keep coming back to Chris Archer, but it just feels like a kick the tires kind of move. I don't think he's probably going to accept a minor league deal. I'm not sure the Dodgers would offer him, but there was a video of him working out, and if you sort of paid close attention, his working out was actually at Dodger Stadium or at a Dodger facility. We know there's a relationship with Andrew Friedman, so who knows? I mean, I'm sure lots of guys kind of work out just at the nearest place to them, and nobody really pays attention. Lots of guys probably in LA, but I'll throw that out there. Chris Archer. We got a couple of people saying Jock Peterson. I just don't see that one, but I mean, who knows? If the market drops low enough and the DH is a real thing, I could see it.
If you talk about wanting Friedman to respond to Preller's moves, then there's no better response to them trading for Joe Musgrove than the Dodgers re-signing Jock Peterson, who's hit 3 homers and 3 at-bats off Joe Musgrove, including 2 in the World Series in 2017.
There you go. Well, we'll go out on that note. Rory Calhoun, is Price going to be good coming back? I think I will answer for myself. Yes, I like David Price this year. I think he's going to be good. I think he's rested, so we'll leave it at that.
I say yes as well to that.
There you go. Hey, we appreciate you guys joining us, as always. Again, every Monday night at 8 p.m., we're going to be here. Last year, we kind of messed up our time because of the national title, but 8 p.m. on Monday nights, DodgerHeads, right here at Dodger Blue 1958 on YouTube. As always, make sure you subscribe to us on social media. We really appreciate that. That helps us out. The notifications on is a huge help for us as well. And check out DodgerBlue.com. That's where we post all our articles and the latest updates. So we appreciate you all. And as a gift for staying this long, I give you the beautiful voice of Vin Scully sending us home.
The best team holding a trophy high in the air. The Los Angeles Dodgers, champions of the baseball world.